Have you ever noticed how most rich people never seem to run out of money? They seem to have an endless stream of cash, and they're always buying luxurious things like sports cars, mansions, and private jets. But when you look at their bank accounts, it turns out they're not really any richer than you are. So why do they always have money to spend? It all comes down to one simple habit that most people don't know about. Rich people only buy assets. Everything we purchase can be split into two categories: assets or liabilities. Assets are things that put money in your pocket. They either generate income or they appreciate in value. For example, stocks, rental properties, and businesses are all assets. On the other hand, liabilities are things that drain money from your wallet. They lose value over time. For example, expensive cars, designer clothes, and the latest gadgets are all liabilities. Rich people avoid buying liabilities. They only buy assets because they understand that it is better to invest their money than to spend it on things that quickly lose value. This is why most rich people drive mid-range cars that lose only a small percentage of their value each year, rather than luxury cars that lose a lot of their value in the first few years. It's also why they prefer to wear simple clothing and use basic gadgets instead of expensive ones. Sure, these items might make them feel good for a while, but they know that buying them will only drain their wealth. Instead, they'd rather wait until they've built up enough income to afford these luxuries. And by then, they're able to buy them without sacrificing their financial future. This is the secret habit that keeps rich people rich. They understand that it's not about how much money you make, but what you do with it. You can earn all the money in the world, but if you spend it on liabilities, you'll soon be back to zero. But if you can control your spending and only buy assets, then you'll be able to grow your wealth over time. But why do rich people use their income to buy assets rather than spend it on liabilities? Well, it all comes down to discipline. Rich people are disciplined with their spending. They know what they can afford and they stick to it. They don't buy things just because they're on sale or because everyone else is doing it. Instead, they only buy assets that will help them grow their wealth. On the other hand, poor and middle-class people often struggle with impulse control. They buy things on credit without thinking about whether they really need them or if they can afford them. They see something they like, they buy it, even if it means going into debt. This is why most people end up spending more money than they earn. They buy liabilities that they can't afford, which eventually leads to bankruptcy. So if you want to become rich, you need to develop the same level of discipline as rich people. You need to learn to control your impulses and resist the temptation to buy things you do and need. Instead, you should focus on buying assets that will help you generate income or appreciate in value. Here is a simple way to remember this rule: only spend money on things that put money in your pocket. If it doesn't do that, then don't buy it. It may seem obvious, but most people don't follow this rule. They spend money on liabilities that make them feel good for a moment, but ultimately leave them broke. When you start following this rule, you'll notice that you have more money left over at the end of each month. At first, you might not have much to spend it on, but as you continue to save, you'll eventually have enough to start buying some nice things. And when you do, you lines find that you can buy a lot more than you could before because you're not burdened by debt. So if you want to become rich, start by changing your mindset. Focus on buying assets, not liabilities. Remember, the secret is to let your money work for you so you don't have to work for money. Now ask yourself, am I buying something that grows my wealth or am I just spending money?